Hello, how are you? Welcome back. Or just hello if you've never been here before. My name's Alyssa. Nerdy Nurse Reads over on Instagram. And it's time for me to wrap up my February reads. I usually have tea, but we're gonna have some wine because I feel like I look classy, so let's pretend I am classy. And also this is the last of this bottle, so like might as well finish it. So I've been really putting off making this. I feel like for some reason I just haven't been motivated to film this wrap up, and I don't know why. I don't think I had a bad reading month, but there's just something about it that I'm not excited to do it. And maybe it's because I'm just not excited to edit because I know that it's painful for me to edit. I don't know. But we're here. We're here. We're doing it. We have wine and we're going to go through it. So let's just do it. So for February, I read 21 books because February is just too short. It's too short of a month and I wish I could have read more. We're going to quickly get through these 21 books. Yeah. So let's start with Leave the World Behind, which is this sort of mystery that feels a little bit like a Jordan Peele movie, that you have this like white family who's rented this very expensive home for the weekend. There's something going on where there's like no power and the owners show up, and the owners are this black couple, and it's this weird like mixing of people. It feels like Us. It feels a little bit like Get Out. It's really good. 5 stars, super short. I'm really glad that I read this. Oh, and there's a little hint. I've got my notes out again. I put reminds me of Station 11 and a Jordan Peele film. So if that's a vibe that you're into, I would recommend this. Plus it's really short. The next thing I read was a book that was graciously gifted to me by Tor.com. I love that I get to work with Tor because I think Tor makes some of the best books that are out right now. And that might just be because I'm biased because I really like fantasy. But this is like a historical fantasy that's like speculative fiction. It centers around the idea, it's set in like Nazi Germany, beginning of the Cold War, the making of the A-bomb. And it's kind of
editing Alyssa here. I totally like misrepresented this book. This book is about building rockets, not building bombs, but it's kind of in that same era, but it's about the space race, and that explains why these ladies are trying to get people to space. And I didn't say that. I don't know where my head was yesterday. I can't blame the wine because I only had like 2 sips. But yeah, it's about the space race and these women's contributions to the space race. And it's set in sort of post World War II going into the Cold War.
But basically it's about there's these women who are from somewhere else and they're trying to get us to the stars, and they are the ones that are pushing through all this innovation. And it's generation after generation of women that are doing this. And then there are these men that are from outer space that are trying to like thwart them. And this is book 1 in the series, and you sort of just start to get the tension that's going to be there throughout the entire series of these 2 factions sort of working against each other. But really, are they working against each other? Should they work against each other? Like, what's true, what's not true? It's really beautifully written. It says a lot about our own society. It is so good. I really, 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 really recommend this. This is another 5-star read. So like, I don't know why I'm so anti doing this wrap up, because I had really good books. But for some reason, I'm not ready to do this. But whatever. This was a really good read. If you like speculative fiction, if you like strong female characters, if you like small books, if you like things that are sort of set in like World War II, read this. The next book that I did read was Winter's Orbit, which is, I don't have a physical copy of. I got it as an ARC. And I'm very late to all my ARCs, so I'm doing a lot of catch up on a lot of my ARCs. So I read Winter's Orbit, which is a fantastic sci-fi romance, male. It is some of the scenes when they're like stranded and they finally start to connect are so beautiful. And there's like court intrigue and mystery, and there's like forced arranged marriage, and it's just so good. It's so beautifully written. I will say it takes a few chapters to get into the story because you're getting used to this world. The world is a very interesting world where different people are labeled by different things, like what they wear, because not everybody is like cis hetero. So like people identify in different, it's a much more like non-binary world. It's a lot more open with sexuality. So there's a lot of building up of the world just sort of to get that point across so you understand the world that you're going into. And it's beautiful, but it takes like a chapter or two to just really get into the plot. And then once you're there, it's so good. 4 stars, highly recommended. It's also a beautiful book, and I wish I had a hard copy of it because it's just so pretty. And I loved it, so who doesn't want a book they loved? It's like there's a world in my wine glass because of the ring light. My nonfiction book for the month, and I think this is my only nonfiction. I did good. I only read one nonfiction. Go me. Sometimes I get a little nonfiction kicky, but it was Cast. I know I've talked about this, I think, on my Instagram at least once. This is Isabel Wilkerson. I keep wanting to call her Isabella. I don't know why, and I apologize to the author for doing that. And again, I don't give star ratings on my nonfictions because for the most part, nonfictions for me are 5-star reads. It just seems weird to give a star rating. It's either like I really enjoyed it or I couldn't read it. So like, anyway. This is a really interesting book that looks at the different caste, like 3 major caste systems in America, India, and Nazi Germany, who was mirrored off of our like Jim Crow laws. It is a very difficult read in the sense that it hurts to read it because she doesn't hold back. Her writing is fantastic. Her writing is beautiful. I found out about this author through a coworker, a traveling nurse who was working with us for a while. She told me that this book was coming out, and she also told me about her first book, which is like The Warmth of Other Suns or something along that vein. And I have that book. I haven't read it yet, but she was saying how much she loves this author, and her passion about her made me pick her up. And finally, I decided to listen to this, and I get it. Like, I get the passion because her writing is phenomenal. The pieces of her own story that she throws in here to illustrate certain things are just heartbreaking. And I mean, there's things that make you just weep, and there's things that make you think differently. It is a must read for anybody who thinks they are woke. You are not woke, you are awakening. So sit down, pick up a book and read, because we all need to learn more. And none of us, I'm speaking of people that look like me, will ever truly understand. The only thing you can do is teach yourself, and that's your job to do. So I highly recommend this to everyone and anybody, especially anybody who wants to be a better ally and actually try to help push some change in this world. You need to understand where you came from, and you need to understand what people are fighting as best as you can. And you can only do that through research, which this is phenomenal. Anyway, that's my soapbox. Hopefully that's the end of my soapbox for this wrap up, or it's gonna be very preachy, and I don't want it to be preachy. Let's see, I kept going with I need to be wearing my brace, but it hurts to wear my brace. And I am just in a really shitty spot right now. But anyway, we're gonna ignore that. I'm tired of talking about my hand. My hand is not better. It freaking hurts. I had an MRI. We're waiting for instructions. I continued on my Frederick Bachman kick, and I read my second Frederick Bachman, and my only other Frederick Bachman I think that I own currently, and that's Beartown. And this book, I devoured Beartown. This was 5 stars. I saw somebody DNF'd it last month, and I was like, it hurt me. They did a reel of all their things they DNF'd, and they DNF'd this and a couple other things that I really loved, and I was like, but this is so good. It's like small town crime, how things get covered up. Bachman is so good at weaving the stories of just like the grittiness of real human life together and making a bigger statement. And it's so good. And I want to be able to say, like, oh, it's a simple story about like hockey players in small towns and blah, blah. It's not just that. It is such a moving story. And I mean, I just ate this book up. I need to read the second one. I need to read more Bachman. I just feel like Bachman has a way of portraying human emotion that is raw and honest and dissecting. I don't know if that is even is an adjective, but like he like teases and picks apart humanity. And I can't do this. He teases and picks apart humanity and pulls out all those raw little threads and weaves them together to make something that's just, it's so good. And I'm so glad that I finally reading him. I get it. I get the Bachman love. Oh, I guess I did technically have another nonfiction. This is kind of a cheat. I realized that I never actually finished When Harry Met Minnie because I got to like the last maybe 4 chapters and I knew where it was going, and I knew that I wasn't ready to cry, and I wasn't really ready to cry when I picked it up, but I decided I need to be a big girl and I need to just finish it. This book is really moving. It came out this month. Well, it came out in February, and it is, and thank you Celadon for sending it to me. It is basically the story of how dogs change our lives, but also how we change our lives and how dogs bring people together, and touches on like New York and 9/11 and all kinds of other things that touch home just for me. Like this book is just made to make Alyssa specifically cry. It'll make other people cry, but like this was just between all the it's so good. If you like memoirs, if you can stomach memoirs about dogs, I would read this. It's so good. It's super short. It's beautifully written. Martha Tichner, I don't know how to say her name, but she's a writer for Sunday Morning, CBS Sunday Morning, which is a show we always watched growing up because my dad always watched it on Sunday mornings. So I'm just used to seeing it. And I've always loved the pieces. It always felt like grown up Mr. Rogers when they would do picture in picture. And it's probably a really weird description, but that's what it felt like, especially as a little kid, because I loved picture in picture where they would show you how to like make crayons and stuff. And then I loved all the little stories they would do on CBS Sunday Morning. So I did not like when Meet the Press came on after, though. That was really boring. Well, we went down a rabbit hole in my childhood. Anyway, if you want to cry, When Harry Met Minnie. I'm going to do these 2 together because, and I've talked about them already. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. I read the first 2 in, it's really, really glary. I read the first 2 in J.M. Buckler's series that she has out, Sacred of Time series. I'm reading the 3rd one this month. I have a lot of chunky books on this month's TBR. I've been trying to firm up that TBR because I have so many chunky books on it. I will give you 2 examples of the chunky books I have on it. I'm rereading Crescent City and I'm reading Game of Thrones so that I can catch up with a friend and we can keep reading the series together. Those are 2 massively big books. They're each a minimum somewhere around 750 pages. I still have other books I want to read. So yes, firming up that will be out shortly. But these were very good. They are sort of sci-fi romance. The first book is definitely someone's first book, but it's good, and it sets up the scene for the second book, which is massively an improvement in terms of writing style over the first one, but it's also just plot. The plot gets more involved. You get a better plot. And the third book, I can't wait to see how this all wraps up because she has another book, which I guess is now actually coming out in 2022, but that's fair. You're self-publishing. It takes a while. So I highly recommend these. I've talked about them enough. I'm not going to talk about them anymore. Just go read them. If you have Kindle Unlimited, they're free for Kindle Unlimited. So just download them. Do it now. I read Afterlife of the Party, which was thankfully sent to me. Which was kindly, that's not English, kindly sent to me by Entangled Teen. We all know I get a lot of stuff from Entangled Teen. And this is just like a young teenage vampire story, but there's also witches. It gave me lots of Southern vampire feels. It felt like a YA True Blood with like Sookie and everybody else. And I loved that series. So this was right up my alley. Basically, there's this like band literally of vampires, and they have groupies, and that they like, some of them get turned, some of them are just there as like blood bags basically. And this girl's friend goes essentially missing with this band, and then she tries to rescue her, but the girl's also a witch, so now she's like a vampire witch. It is just over the top and lovely in all the best ways, and I love it. I need the next one. I'm actually really mad it's the first book in a series. I want like the whole chunk and series so I can just read it obsessively like the weirdo I am. Oh, I'm gonna do this. Hold on. I realized I didn't give you anything because I got so distracted with other things, but this is 4 stars. I gave Seeker of Time 4 stars. I believe I gave Stillness of Time 4 stars as well. I did. So those were all 4-star reads. See, like I had a good reading month. I don't know why I'm so not in the mood. Oh, because there's a couple over here I really didn't like. That might be it. I don't know where my copy went, but I had a copy of Glimpsed. I've talked about Glimpsed already before. Glimpsed is a teenage romance that I gave 4 stars. It's really sweet and cute. It's about a young girl who is kind of like a fairy godmother. She ends up in this fake dating thing with this boy who's blackmailing her to correct one of the things she did as godmother. Romance ensues. It's adorable. It'll just make you happy. It's a feel-good, happy read. 4 stars. I reread Persuasion for, I don't know what time this is, but I reread Persuasion this year by Jane Austen. I love Persuasion. I think Persuasion, it's the last book, full book that she wrote, and I love the message of Persuasion. I love this idea of how you have your love of your life sort of taken from you or stalled out, but that person that's your person will always be yours. It's just maybe timing isn't the right time, and maybe you're too young to fight for certain things, and like maybe certain things have to happen in your life before you can actually have a successful relationship with the person you're supposed to be with. It is so much more grown up than like a Northanger or even a Pride and Prejudice. I love Persuasion so much. I just think that Anne Elliot is, you can look at her and think that she's like a little bit of like a doormat in a lot of ways, but really she's just surrounded by very self-absorbed and vain people. I just wonder what my neighbors think when they drive by. Vain people, and she's just trying to not drown in all of that. And you can see how much people who have any tiny amount of sense rely on her. And you can also see how she kind of gets abused. I love Anne. I feel like Anne and Elizabeth are my 2 favorites of all of her main characters. I love it. So I highly recommend it, but I highly recommend any Jane Austen, except for maybe Mansfield Park, because that book is boring. And if anybody wants to try to convince me otherwise, please do. I'm welcome to have you try. Next up we have a disappointment. I was so excited to get this book in my Unplugged book box because the cover is beautiful and it was supposed to be like a gothic horror, and I was really excited about it. And I gave it 3 stars because I don't know. I feel like I could give it fewer stars at this point, the more time I spend away from it. But I don't know what happened in it. And a few of us read it together, and it's just kind of like, what did I read? I still don't understand everything. It felt like there should have been a message, but I didn't get it. And that might be me, which maybe that's why I gave it 3 stars instead of 2, because I feel like some of it's a failing on my part. But then also, I feel like there was so much emphasis on having this mysterious gothic atmosphere that the author never got around to actually fully explaining stuff. And so it was just too much focus on the mystery, which is fine. And you can make that atmosphere, but at some point you have to reveal things. And I shouldn't feel this lost after I read it. Like I literally, like my notes are like, what the heck did I read? Was she a fish person? I don't I don't know what to do with this. The cover is banging. Like, the cover is fantastic. If you've read this and you love this, I want someone to please explain to me why they loved it, because I feel like either I'm missing something or it just wasn't good, and I don't know what the answer is. I honest to goodness don't know which one's real. Is it really not that great, or did I just miss the boat somewhere? Right. I will tell you what book. Oh, this was the other book. That same person who DNF'd Beartown DNF'd this. And this book, 4 stars. This book was so well written. This book is so good. This book deals with so much. If you like books about mental health, if you like books about like self-discovery, if you like books that are about redemption without necessarily having like a cookie cutter happy ending, and you like adult contemporary, this book is so good. This book deals with divorce. This book deals with death. This book deals with mental health. This book deals with infertility. This book deals with suicide. This book deals with just so much stuff. It's so good. It's so good. Essentially, 2 strangers meet by happenstance. They end up spending a bunch of time together, and through spending time together, it helps change the course of both of their lives. Like a week together, it changes the course of both of their lives, and eventually, they get a happy ending. But it's not an easy one happy ending, and it's not the happy ending you maybe think it's going to be, but it's like eventually everybody figures out themselves enough to be okay. This close to okay. And like a few years ago, I wouldn't have been able to read this just based on the divorce and the infertility stuff. I would have been too triggered. And I feel like I myself have gotten more okay so that I can actually read this. And I don't know, this just, maybe it's personal connections. I don't know. But this book, I love this book. I highly recommend this book. Here's another disappointment. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on this one because I don't know what I read. This is Master of One. This is a new fantasy. I was really drawn to it. I thought it was really interesting. It's got all this beautiful art in it. I got a beautiful copy from Bookish Box. This is the regular cover. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It is too long, too overwrought, like the sentences. It is too much and somehow not enough at the same time. I did not like this. I was going to DNF it, and I decided that instead of DNFing it, I would just see if I felt compelled to finish the audiobook before the end of the month. And one day I was like, screw it. I can finish this on my drive to and from work. And so I just finished it. And that's the only reason why I finished this. I give it 1 star because somebody wrote it. And I don't want to bash this too much because I know there are people who really love it. But for me, this book just didn't do it. They were trying to do too much with too little, and I couldn't. Turbo is shaking. By the way, Persuasion is a 5-star read if you didn't realize that. Anywho, I'm really bad at actually telling you my star ratings, aren't I? We'll get better at this. I don't do a lot of wrap-ups, or I didn't last year, so like this year I'm trying to get better at it, so I'll learn. That's what we say, right? I'll learn. That's like the YouTuber phrase. I'm learning. I'm changing. That's assuming that I'm being problematic, and I don't want to be problematic. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I don't know who's finished it and who has it, but I of course read A Quart of Silver Flames because it came out this month. I forgot it came out this month, and then I remembered, and then I had to shuffle around my TBR, so that's why a few things that I said I was going to read aren't on this list because it's not small. I loved it. I did not like Nesta before this. I love Nesta now. I still don't like Elaine. I would like an As book, because if I have to pick any of these fairies, I want As. Something about those shadows make me happy. This is essentially like a badass female plot, a redemption arc, and pornography. Like book porn. And I don't hate those things. If you don't like certain things, maybe it's not for you. I really liked this. This is right up my alley. I know that there's some divided things on this. I'm not going to go into too much stuff because I don't know who's read what, like I said. But for me, this is a 4-star read. I still think it's not going to be 5 stars. Much as I really truly enjoyed this whole ride, there's something about Sarah J. Maas's writing that always feels too contrived. Like there's too much of a happy ending. There's a point in here where like I wish she just let someone die, because I feel like it would have had more of an impact and could have made this a lot more interesting, and she didn't. And like that's fine, but like I don't always want, like sometimes I want it to be messy. Like that's why I like J. Kristoff. That's why I loved Nevernight. You know, I don't always need everybody to have a happy ending. I don't always need everything to be like hunky-dory. I don't need everything to always be convenient. Like things can be messy, things can be whatever. Like sometimes she, and it's not just this book, it's like in general. And like when she writes herself into a corner and she can't figure it out, she just magically makes something happen so that that plot hole doesn't exist. And that's annoying to me. So I have to take a star away from that. But the sheer enjoyment I had it's a 4-star read, because my enjoyment was like, and she only used the word maw like once or twice. She only did the breath I didn't know I was holding like once or twice. So like those pet phrases really weren't there. So I really enjoyed it. But like my ACOTAR feelings are like, I hate the first one. I love the second one. I'm sort of meh on the third one. I hate the novella. Like I don't know why it existed. And then this I really love. So who knows what the next one's gonna be. I'm either gonna really love it or I'm gonna really hate it, because it seems like it just goes like this throughout that series.
That hurts. Why do I do that?
It goes like this throughout that series. Anyway, I'm gonna stop hurting myself and we're gonna move on to the next book. I'm not gonna talk about this a lot because it was our TBR lowdown pick and I have an entire reading blog on it, and we have the discussion group, which is a really good discussion if you didn't get to read it and you wanted to hear about the prophets. This book, I mean, as you could probably tell from all the tabbing and no, I don't have any on the bottom. This book was so good. I've watched so many interviews with Robert Jones Jr. This is the kind of book that needs to be, I've said it once, I'm gonna say it 1,000 times. This book needs to be on a syllabus for different college courses, for high school courses. This book needs to be studied. This is something that is part of our great modern literature. It is a new edition. It should slide on that shelf along with some, I don't know who, like put him next to like Maya Angelou. He is, this book apparently was a 14-year labor of love, and this book was phenomenal. It's a 5-star read. I recommend this. I recommend rereading it and having a pen in hand and some flags, because you're gonna learn something, you're gonna feel things. It's so good. I finally finished Eye of the World, and I don't really have notes for Eye of the World because I don't know how to even describe how I feel about this. I was about halfway through before I really ever cared about the plot. By the end, I really loved it. I'm excited to see where they go from here. It is very Tolkien-like in its expansive and detailed world building. It is filled with creatures. It is filled with details. I feel like I could reread this a dozen times and find something new every freaking time. But I overall really enjoyed it. It's hard to say something bad about it because it really is a beautifully written story. It really is a masterpiece of fantasy literature. There's a reason why it's a classic. And I gave this 4 stars. Almost everything is 4 stars except for the things that are like 1. But this was really, really good. And it definitely takes a lot of time, and you need to spend time with it. There's a lot of characters, there's a lot of places, there's a lot of lore, there's a lot of things to learn. But I think by the time, I think there's like 11 or 12 books in this series, maybe more. By the time I think we get through 4 or 5 of these, I think we will know everything so well that it won't feel like it did in this book as like overwhelming. But there's a lot to take in this first book. I think that's more like a warning. So if you don't like that kind of fantasy, maybe don't read this. But if you do, it's definitely worth trying. I have 4 more things. I read The City We Became, which was an interesting book to read shortly on the heels of The Prophets. N.K. Jemisin, first of all, is a genius. If you've never read any of her work, you must, because it's the kind of work that sits with you. It is beautiful. This is kind of like an ode to New York City. It's also like the follow-up of the Prophets in the sense of seeing how far-reaching the things that are discussed in the Prophets are, because it's about a modern-day thing. Essentially, the boroughs of Manhattan come alive, of New York come alive. And they come alive because they have to protect the city from this beast that's coming to take it over and make it into something else. And so it speaks to a lot of things about like gentrification, about the different peoples that make up New York, and how it's not just one person that makes up New York, makes up New York, how the boroughs each have their flavors. There's a lot of really good New Jersey jokes, which you expect from something that's about New York, but it's brilliantly written. It was a little difficult to get into in the first couple chapters, but then once I was in. Like, I was in like Flynn. I was not coming out. I had to finish this book. It was really, really good. Again, 4 stars. N.K. Jemisin is seriously a genius. Like, her brain works in a way I don't understand, because my brain will never be at that level. But her writing is just so phenomenal. And I guess this is a series. This is book 1, I believe. And there's more to come. But there's so much in here about society and about New York in particular, and then just in general society. I mean, N.K. Jemisin is... I'm gonna shut up, because if I keep talking about her, it's gonna start sounding weird, so I'm gonna stop. Luster, which is a strange book. I gave this 5 stars because this book is strange, because you spend the entire time just questioning the main character's decisions. But this book is... You cannot... First of all, it's short, but like, you cannot stop reading it because it's insane. Think about how messy your 20s were. If you're in your 20s, think about how messy your life is right now. Now add some trauma and some poor decision making and some loose sexual morals, and that are usually basically based on, not because there's anything wrong with you, but because you're actually trying to deal with your trauma and hiding it in sex. And then add some race relations, and here you go. This book is so great. I want to know more about the wife. Basically, this girl in her 20s, she's promiscuous she's definitely got some things that have happened to her in the past, and some of her promiscuity is a reaction to her trauma. I'm trying to say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm judging anybody, because I don't really care. Be a hoe, be a hoe. Like, enjoy your life. That's fine. But she does make some questionable choices in her hoeing. She ends up with this married man, and somehow she also ends up with this married man and meeting the wife, and because they're in this open relationship. And truthfully, the husband is a freaking dud. That wife, I want to know more about that. I secretly wanted, and this is not how this ends, I wanted her to go, screw you, and start a relationship with a wife and have them leave him. That's what I wanted. That's my alternate ending to this book. I wanted her to take the wife, kick the other dude out, and just have like a happy bisexual, lesbian, however they identify, life together. But I mean, I really recommend this. It's short and you will enjoy it. Read it. It is quite the ride. It was fantastic. I have 2 books left. I read Ruined Song with my friend Lacey, which I was expecting. I did a review on Instagram, so I've already sort of talked about this. I was expecting like sort of like murdery, female, witchy kind of fantasy. And I got the female. I got a little bit of the murdery, and the witchiness was fine, but there was just something missing for me in this book. And there was this weird, and I still don't know if it was me, but I went on and I looked at some other reviews to see if anybody else felt this way. And there were other people that noticed this, but there's this weird emphasis on saying how white so many characters were. And I just don't remember hearing, you know, like his tan skin or his honey skin or his, I don't know, his chocolate skin. Like, I didn't hear any other descriptors until the end about anybody's coloring skin-wise. And so, I don't know, I just feel like it could have been left out, almost. Or you should have diversified throughout. There was just something that sounded really weird. It was like every time I heard it, my ear went, okay, so that one's white. And then it'd be like, oh, and that one's impeccably white. And then you're like, a few more people get involved and be like, oh, that one has white skin too. I mean, at this point, do we have to just, and then at the very end, I think that what made it really weird is that at the very, very end, it was like, reference like 2 or 3 characters and was like, oh, and these black aristocrats or something. And I was like, well, did you throw them in at the end? I don't mind spitting everywhere. I'm so angry about this. I'm just so confused about this book. I thought it was, I felt like it was a little insta-lovey, which I don't really like. I didn't really believe the love between the female characters because it was a little insta-lovey. It was just kind of like, we love each other. Okay. I liked the magic. I thought the magic was cool that like you can sing and that's the magic, and certain people have that capability and certain people don't. I liked how the evil queen was a little Maleficent-y, which I know that there's been some arguments throughout, what's that thing called? Goodreads, about using that woman scorned thing to make someone evil, but like, whatever. I love Maleficent. So I liked that part of it. I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed the time I was reading it, but then when I stopped and I looked back, I was kind of like, oh, like it was all right. So, but again, it's another one that has like a banging cover. And I think this is the book that made me wonder if I should take a star away from What Big Teeth, because it's hard for Ruin Song to have 3 stars, and I really enjoyed it. And have What Big Teeth have 3 stars, and I don't know what I read. So I feel like I might be doing some adjustments on What Big Teeth. But anyway, I ended the month on a high note. I'm gonna wrap this up because I've been blabbering for 40 minutes. And I read Fortuna Sworn because I needed something to get me over my my quart of silver flames hangover. And I remembered that I had this in my bookshelf, on my bookshelf from a bookish box. And I know it's fairies and I know it's kind of dark and smutty. And I was like, all right, I'll pick this up. And then my Hoopla had it on audiobook, so I could just do what I had to do on the last day of the month and I could listen to it and read along when I had time. I abso-freaking-lutely loved this book. 4 stars. Is it perfect? No, obvi, because I gave it 4 stars, but I like that Fortuna isn't like, this has a lot of ACOTAR similarities. Fortuna goes through like a test of, like a testing thing where she has to go through 3 trials. She's trying to save somebody. There's a final battle. There's a lot of things that are very similar to ACOTAR, like actual ACOTAR. However, I don't hate her like I hate Farah. So Fortuna is like ballsy and strong. I mean, she's a nightmare. Like, she is a thing. She doesn't need the Fae King that tricks her into marrying him to give her anything. She is on her own a powerful being, and she proves it without any assistance, without anybody cheating, without anybody talking down a bond. Like, she is a strong, independent woman who's going to protect her family. And I love Fortuna, and I need to get the next books because it's just so great. It's such a fun ride. It feels very slow burny. I'm getting ready for, like, I need some smuts, like pure smut, not teasy smut. And I just loved it. Like, if you like this kind of book, read it because it's just so freaking good. So good. That's what I read this month. Those are all 21 books I read in February. If you've read any of these, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. I appreciate you for making it through however long this video is. If you've made it this far, as usual, we do a thing. If you've made it this far, I would love for you to leave down below okie dokie smoky. Because that just lets me know that you've made it this far, and now I know who's really here, and I can thank you for watching, and I really appreciate it. Just a reminder, we are trying to get to 1,000 subs by the end of the year. It is March. We're almost through the first quarter and we're not at 500 yet. So I would absolutely love it. If you love this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you are subscribed, share this with somebody so that maybe they can subscribe if they're interested. Give it a like, interact with it. The more you do that, the more YouTube will push it out through their algorithm. So I really appreciate you guys. I actually do like making these videos despite how much I've not wanted to film this. I think I haven't wanted to film this because I have books I actually really didn't like in this, and I always feel bad when I really don't like something because I know how much time and effort it takes people to write a book and get it published and do all the things, and then to have some idiot like me get on the internet and be like, well, I didn't like it. I feel like a jerk. But the beauty of books is that they're all not for everybody. It's not one size fits all. So I might hate it and you might love it. I hope that you love the things that I hate because I want people to love people's work and their artistry. Enough rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will learn how to speak by the next one. I'm gonna finish my TBR. I'm trying really hard to get my shelves together for y'all. It's a tough one, but thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you. I'll see you in my next video, whatever it may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Cheers, as the sun's going down.
Just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but